Welcome to the West Virginia CASE Podcast, hosted by Les Odell. Join us as we dive deep into all things strange, including Bigfoot, aliens, ghosts, and more. Pull up a chair and set for a spell. It's going to be a great time. Now, without further delay, let's get the show started.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey folks, welcome back to the West Virginia CASE Podcast. Well, it's been a fun week so far. Been looking forward to this. I've been wanting to talk to Nancy for some time now about some of her experience and stuff, and can't wait to bring her on. But I just wanted to come on first and say thank you all for the kind words and comments from last week's show. I guess everybody thought that was pretty interesting to have my son come out and actually interview me. I enjoyed it immensely. I really did. I thought it was a fun time. And I want to thank everybody, like I said, who come in or sent me messages or text me or anything like that, and said they enjoyed it. So I really want to thank you all for that. I don't know who all is friends with me on Facebook, but I did some exploring this past weekend in around the Tigert Lake area, and I was exploring mainly because that area is in a severe drought. The lake is extremely low, and I went there to look, see if I can find any footprints and stuff like that, or just to hike around, because there are some reports, and I've taken a couple reports of Bigfoot activity in that area. Not to mention, you have the famous Grafton monster, from 1964 that's made the area famous, and well, especially in the past couple years. And this year was the first year for the festival there, for the Grafton Monster Festival. Hopefully that continues to grow. Just want to let you know that this weekend coming, I will be in an area in the southern part of the state with a friend of mine. We're going to be doing some Bigfooting based on some reports I've taken over the past few years, and we will hopefully, if everything goes as planned, we'll be talking to some witnesses there as well. And then the following week, I will be in, I guess you'd say, the western part of the state, outside of Point Pleasant area. I got contacted about some strange lights on a farm that's been going on for a few years. They sent me some videos of these lights just coming, just like kind of popping up, appearing and disappearing. Some of them are just the way they look are strange. They sent me some pictures and videos, so they invited me to come down. So I'll be down there next weekend. I can't disclose where that's at because of their privacy. Plus, the gentleman that, the owner of the property, he has a kind of a job that he can't really say much about it in publicly, things like this, because it could affect his job. So, yeah, I really want to say again, thank you, everybody. And I want to, I'm still amazed by how many people are joining me just sitting here chatting, with other people. Like, I really like to hear the stories. I'm not much one to talk a whole bunch. Those that know me or, close to me, Tammy knows that for sure. Danny knows that. I'm not a great big talker, but I enjoy listening to people. Wes, buddy, if I have time this weekend, because I'll be going down past you, if I can, when I come back through on Sunday, if I have time, I might stop by and see you if that's okay. If not, I'll let you know. So with all that being said, I was kind of rambling on there just to kill a little time, get some people in here. But Tony, hey Tony, how you doing, buddy? There's Tammy. Hey Tammy. And hey country girl, how's everybody? So with that being said, without further ado, I want to bring on still reading. Nancy. Nancy was born in Raleigh County and raised in West Virginia. In 1980, she moved to Arkansas with her husband. They lived there for 40 years. And in 2021, they moved back here to West Virginia to take care of her mother. But she's had paranormal experiences. Her paranormal experiences started while she was in Arkansas, and she's had numerous ones since, even after she's moved back here in West Virginia. And she's going to share those with us tonight. So everybody sit back and enjoy these stories, because I know I'm going to.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey. How you
doing? Pretty good. It's nice to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
Yes. Well, I don't know where you want me to start. You mentioned Arkansas, and so if that's okay, I'll just start there.
Well, if normally what I do, if you want, just go ahead and give a little background of yourself,
sure.
Kind of like whatever you feel comfortable with. And,
I got you. Well, like you said, I was born and raised in West Virginia, Raleigh County. Just a little country girl, nothing fancy. My family, I was raised as a Christian and grew up in a Baptist church. So God was very important in our lives as we were children growing up. And my parents always had very strict morals. I will tell you one thing, though, that I thought was real peculiar thinking back on being a child and raised in West Virginia. One year for Christmas, and I must have been 10 years old. My sister was probably 12 years old, my older sister, and my brother was 13. Or we may have been a little bit younger. But my parents, for one of our Christmas gifts, they gave us a Ouija board. And of course, my sister and I were just fascinated with it, to try to put our hands on it and see if it would tell us if we were going to get married someday, and how many children we would have, and what was the first initial of our husband's name.
Right.
We'd never realized that we might possibly be messing with something that was not good. Mm-hmm. And my parents would have never brought that into the home if they'd have realized the danger. I mean, Milton Brothers or whoever makes it, and you could buy it at G.C. Murphy back right. in the day. So anyways, I grew up in a very sheltered home. We did have lawn darts, and no one ever got stabbed. But neither here nor there. I was 20 years old when I met my husband, and we married and moved to Arkansas, because back in 1978, times were tough in West Virginia, and unless you worked in the coal mines, jobs were kind of sparse. So we decided we wanted to prove to our parents we could make it on our own, and we thought that Arkansas would be a good place to relocate, far enough away from Mom and Dad that Mom and Dad would have to call before they came and to visit. But anyways, we got out there, and life was pretty good. We had 2 children, 15 months apart, 2 sons, and they were a joy of my life, next to God, or under God. And anyways, like I said, I had a really good life. And one of my sons had, I don't think he was married at the time, but he was going to college down south in southern Arkansas. And my younger son was still at home. He liked being there at home with Mom and Dad, and he was a good kid. Excuse me. I'm recovering from COVID, so y'all had to bear with me. But anyways, one evening, our home was a modest ranch, probably 1,080 square feet, small home. And at the back of the house was a bedroom that we had converted into an office with a computer. And my husband was back there doing some research on the computer. And my youngest son and I were in the living room. watching probably CSI is what I want to say, or NCSI. We had both had a thing for Abby on NCIS. Is NCIS. We liked her character. So we were watching it, and a commercial came on TV, a commercial break. And my he was sitting, we had a sectional sofa, and his back was to the wall that was the opposing wall to our kitchen. We didn't have an open floor plan. There was separation of rooms. But he was sitting on that section, and I was sitting on the section across from him, that my back was toward our carport. And a commercial came on TV, and I believe Mark might have had the remote. I don't know if he had it or if I had it, whoever. But we generally, when a commercial would come on, we would turn the volume down a little bit, and we would talk some, during the commercials and visit. So we had just turned the volume down, and this commercial was on. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice, and it sounded like it was coming from the wall behind Mark. And I'm going to try to recreate what it sounded like. Get out. And it was just so deep and guttural. And I mean, I just kind of raised up from my chair like that. And I just had a stunned look on my face. I turned my head and looked over at Mark. And Mark is very white-skinned, very light-skinned, but he has coal black hair. And looked over at him, and his mouth was open like, and I said, Mark, are you okay? He says, did you hear that? And I looked at him, I said, I heard something. I said, I wasn't going to tell him what I heard. I said, did you hear something? What did you hear? And he says, I just heard this very scary voice say, get out. And I looked at him, I said, that's exactly what I heard. So next thing that he and I did was go back to the computer room and ask his dad, Chris, did you hear that? Chris says, no, I didn't hear anything. I mean, it was back at the other end of the house, but it was loud enough. I could not believe that he didn't hear it. He says, y'all are crazy. He says, y'all are imagining things. And I looked at him. It kind of made me mad a little bit. I said, Chris, how can both of us hear the same thing and imagine it? I wanted to get out of the house. It put chills all over my body. I wanted to get out of the house then and there, because I thought something is trying to warn us that we need to get out of here. Well, he just laughed it off, and I thought, well, it's the middle of, it's dark outside and it's winter time. Or I can't remember. I think it was in the fall of the year to winter, and it was dark outside. And I thought, I'm not going to leave by myself. So I just, we kind of brushed it off. And I told Mark, I said, well, I know we heard that. But we went on for a few days, and we told a few friends what happened. And during the entire encounter, my ex-husband would laugh about it the entire time. And, that kind of made me feel bad. But my son I knew that, him and I both, and I thought, well, I'm not crazy. But that was the only thing we heard like that. But it was enough. And I kept thinking, what could that have been? But I got kind of antsy, and I would be watching TV, and I would be kind of looking over to the side. If I was sitting near the doorway to the kitchen, every now and then I would feel like I would see something pass and go down the hallway. And I thought, well, it's kind of like a dark figure. And I thought, well, is that my imagination, or am I really seeing something? And, I never told anyone about that. But it was several years later that my father-in-law that lived in Virginia had passed away. And, my husband had to go out to Virginia and stay with his brother that developed an illness like type 2 diabetes. And he had to go out and assist with him to help him recover and get his health back on track, because he ended up in the hospital for quite some time, and we were very concerned about his health. So Mark was still living at home with me, and Mark was probably in his mid to late 20s then. So my husband knew that, that I wouldn't be there by myself, and he liked the fact that Mark was there with me. And living in Northeast Arkansas, it's very storm prone. My father-in-law died February 29th, the particular year that he died. It was a leap year day. And like I said, it was just a couple of months later that Chris had to go to Virginia, and he ended up staying for 3 months. Well, during the time he was out there, Arkansas experienced really bad storms that year. And we had like severe flooding and a lot of very active spring storms. And I worked full time, and Mark worked, and we both had gotten home from work probably about 5:30. And I was sitting there, and I was trying to decide what I was going to make for supper. And we were watching the local news, which would give tornado warnings. And if you lived in that area, you knew that you better pay attention to the weather and on the local news, because it could change just in a matter of minutes. And we had tornado sirens down at the fire department at the end of our street, but you had to really pay attention and be very aware. So Mark and I were sitting there watching the local KAIT 8 news, and I hadn't turned a lamp on yet in the living room, because it was like in April, and it was still pretty light outside, but it was getting darker because the storm was really building. And you know how it can really get dark outside even though it's still daylight outside. It got so dark that I looked outside, and there was no activity outside. Most people had probably already gone to their storm shelters. But Mark and I were still sitting there, and all of a sudden Mark says, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm watching the weather with you. What do you think I'm doing?" He says, "No." He says, "You have on some earrings or a bracelet or something that's really shining on the ceiling." And I said, "What?" And most of the time I don't wear earrings, and I'd wear the same jewelry, which I like Native American silver and turquoise, but it's not like diamonds. They don't sparkle, and they're not flashy. So anyways, I looked up at the ceiling, and we had a ceiling fan, but there was no light attached to it. I looked up at the ceiling, and there was an orb on my ceiling. It was about the size of a grapefruit, good sized grapefruit. And it was zigzagging, flowing around that ceiling light in the center of the ceiling. And it was a white ball of light. I have never in my life seen anything like it, except I'm going to digress for just a moment. I did see a ball of lightning one time come out of a fuse box when I was a kid on their front porch. People back then had fuse boxes outside of their on their porch. I don't know why, but a ball of lightning came out of that fuse box, rolled around on the floor in front of my brother's feet. This was not a ball of lightning. This was a ball like an orb, and it wasn't fire, but it was just moving around in a real fast manner on that ceiling. And I just couldn't stop staring at it. It felt like I had stared at it for quite a while, but actually it was just a few seconds. And I told Mark, here's what I told him. I said, "Mark," I said, "I don't know what that is, but whatever it is, don't be afraid." I said, "Mark, I think it's something that came to watch over us as like protection." And I wasn't really afraid. It didn't make me nervous, not like the Get Out voice did. It did not make me nervous. But again, Mark and I both witnessed it, and we both saw it with our own eyes. And in just a few seconds, it just disappeared. I mean, it just disappeared. And it was like the storms calmed down a lot after that, too.
Hmm.
But again, I really don't think it was ball lightning. But now, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
The Get Out, was that the
Mhm.
first experience you've ever had with the paranormal, or?
That was the first experience. We moved in the house. My son was a New Year's baby. My first one was.
Mhm.
And we moved in the house like 2 weeks after he was born. And the home had been there. It was probably 5 to 7 years old when we moved in,
Mhm.
and it had been built on farmland. It's just Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas is flat as a pancake.
Mhm.
If you've ever been there, and it's hot and dry, it's rice country. Tons of mosquitoes, like I said, storms, rice country. And um, I had I never said anything to anyone in my family about this, and I definitely wouldn't have told my sons because I think it would have scared them. In their bedroom, on the wall, um, on the let's see, north, it would be on the east wall. There was like a burn mark on the wall that I always thought looked odd. It was down close to the bottom, and the house had not had any fires or anything, but I just thought it was an odd mark on the wall. And I knew the family we bought the house from. I didn't personally know them, but we met them. And they had children, and they had lived there a few years. And I never knew the people prior to that, but I'm wondering if there was something, some kind of history there, that something that happened, perhaps even on that ground.
Right. Did
Um,
Did you ever talk to him after?
that family?
Yeah.
Uh, no, I did not. But around the same time that my son and I experienced the Get Out, um, their son had been killed in an accident right there in the town that we lived in. And I don't know if it was deliberate or if it was an accidental thing that happened, but his car got hit by a train.
Hmm.
And I had, and I know I have a weird way of thinking about things. I had wondered if this child's spirit had come back
Mhm.
and it was somehow looking for his parents because he was a little boy when we moved into the house. Him and his sister were just small, and I kept thinking maybe that child came back looking to try to find his parents. And when he came back into that house, into his familiar territory, and he realized that I don't know these people, get out
Mhm.
of my house.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I mean, that possibility crossed my mind, but other than that, I could not think of any other thing. Um, I you know, like I was telling you earlier, it when you have weird things happen to you
Mhm.
and you have a witness, it kind of gives you validation that you are not crazy. And I was telling you earlier, there were a few other weird things that did happen in that house, and I had gotten to where I just dismissed telling my husband anything had happened because I'd always get the well, you're crazy or whatever. And what happened one night, we were watching TV, and he was in the living room with me, and we heard a cabinet door. It sounded like somebody opened a cabinet door and shoved a cabinet door shut. It's like a thump. And he says, "What was that?" And I said, "Oh, that's that cabinet door that does that all the time." He says, "Well, that's weird." I was thinking, "Yeah, it is." And I heard it all. I heard it pretty often. And I would go to bed at night. I would hear the toothbrushes and the toothbrush holder jingling, like somebody was in there fascinated with the toothbrushes, and like they were taking and wiggling around the toothbrushes, and they were in a ceramic holder. So I knew that if a mouse had gotten up on the holder, it wasn't real stable on the vanity. We had a pedestal vanity, if you know what I'm talking about, ceramic, and the toothbrush holder barely fit on it. It wasn't like it was a wooden vanity. And I thought, there is no way a mouse could get up there, because I actually knocked the toothbrush holder thing over one day and broke it. And I thought, there's no way a mouse could get up here on top of this and jiggle around these toothbrushes, because it would knock them off. And it was just little things like that, little noises I would hear. And we bought this is funny, we bought an electric trash can, one of those cans that if you walk over to it, it'll automatically open. Because we had a granddaughter that was born like 11 years ago, and we wanted things to be real sanitary for her. So we bought this electronic trash can. We'd be sitting there watching TV, and you could hear that thing open and close. And I thought, oh, it would not do it all day long. And then all of a sudden it would just be going, just going back and forth, opening and closing. And Chris would say, and my husband would say, oh, it's just the light, or it's this or that. And I can understand that. And I'll give you credit, that it could be the light. But I still thought it was peculiar. I thought, well, I think something's passing in front of that infrared sensor.
Right.
There has to be some motion that's triggering it to open. It's not just doing that. Because the light in the room wasn't moving. There was no one in the room. And it did that pretty frequently. Well, like you said, I moved back because my mother, she was developing some issues, and she had arthritis so bad. She was having difficulty walking, and I had a fear that she was getting possible Alzheimer's, which it wasn't. That wasn't her situation at all. But I came back to help with my mom, and I ended up staying here. And but let me back up a little bit, Les, because I forgot to share something else that was very important that did happen while I was still living in Arkansas. I was about to forget this, and I told you earlier about it. One of the creepiest things that ever happened to me in that house. Like I said, I worked at the public library in Jonesboro, and everybody's going to know who I am now. But I don't care. I really don't care, because I know everything I'm telling you is the truth. It's fine. I would come home from work, and I would be tired after working all day, and I would usually go to bed about 10 to 10:30ish at night. And my husband would usually go to bed about 12 to 1. It just varied. And I slept, if you're looking at a bed and the head of the bed's behind me, I slept on the, I get left and right mixed up, I slept on the right-hand side of the bed. And, excuse me, it was a queen-size bed. I would get in bed, and I would get comfortable, and then all of a sudden, I would feel something jump on the bed beside my right leg. I wasn't right beside the edge of the bed, but I'd feel something jump on the side of that bed beside my right leg, and I would feel it make an indentation on the bed. Okay? Then I would feel it move across both of my legs. I'd be lying on my back, move across both of my legs. It didn't move fast. It moved slowly, like it was crawling, like a baby or a cat would move across your legs. And it would curl up beside my left calf. Okay? It was like it got comfortable right there beside my left calf. And it wasn't like restless leg syndrome. I know most people say, oh, you had restless leg syndrome. No, my legs were not jumping. My legs weren't itching or nothing like that. It was just this movement. First time it happened, it scared me to death. I thought, what in the world was that? And I just laid there, still as I could be, because I could feel it. I couldn't feel it breathing, but I could feel it pressing against my leg. And I thought, okay, and it's not hurting me or anything. I don't know what this is. It's not hurting me. It's not scratching me, or it's not moving. And I guess eventually I would just either move and it would be gone and I would go to sleep. But the first few times it happened, what I did, I jumped up out of the bed and I threw the covers back to look and see if there was something in the bed. And there, of course, was nothing there. This happened for months. It happened for months. And I mentioned it to my husband, and I mentioned it to my children. And again, Chris told my children, he says, your mom's crazy. She's just imagining stuff. Well, I moved to West Virginia, and when I moved here, it stopped. And I wasn't sad that it stopped. I was actually kind of thinking, well, maybe it'll crawl over next to him since I'm gone. Maybe he'll get to experience it. Maybe it'll crawl over next to his leg. Well, but Belinda, I just saw your message there. I did not own a cat, and I didn't own a dog, but I moved here, and I was telling my sister about what happened. And when the get out thing happened, I had told my sister Mary about that. And she said, Nancy, you need to stop thinking about it because you can give power to whatever is affecting you by continually thinking about it and focusing on it. You can enable it. She said, what you really need to do is something scares you, you need to rebuke it in the name of Jesus Christ. And I told her, I said, I'm not really focused on that, what happened to get out. I said, but this thing with the cat or baby or whatever it is, I said, it's kind of freaking me out. I said, have you ever had that happen to you? No. So, it was about 6 months ago. I was at her home, and we had gone to church that Sunday. We came home, and her husband looked at me, and he says, did Mary tell you what happened to her the other night? And I said, what happened? Because she has a lot of health issues, and I thought it was going to be something about her heart, And she says, didn't you tell me that you had this thing jump on the bed? I said, yes, I did. And she said, does it still do that? And I said, no. I said, I haven't had that happen for quite a while. I said, it scared me. I said, but it never really hurt me or anything. She said, well, the other night, she said, I had gone to bed and I'd gotten ready for bed. And she says, I was laying there, and she says, I felt something jump on the bed. And she says, it moved across my lower legs, got against my lower left calf. And I said, you're kidding. And she said, no. she says, scared me to death. And she says, first thing I knew, she says, I felt it down there tickling my foot. And I said, what? And she and I both are extremely ticklish in her feet. You don't mess with her feet. No. And she said, first thing I thought was Bill. Oops. Now, when I say his name, now everybody's going to know who we're talking about. She says, I yelled out real loud, Bill, stop that. And she said, so he heard me and he came in the room and he says, what's wrong with you? And she says, are you down there tickling my feet? And he says, no, Mary, I'm not in the room. So she realized that it wasn't Bill. And she told him what happened. And well, he went back to doing whatever he was doing, and she went back to sleep. And she said that it has happened almost every night since. But now here's where my sister is a lot braver than I ever was, because she said she could actually feel what appeared to be like a little foot, and it would put its little foot up against her foot. And she said that she took her other foot and moved it up and down the side of this little thing's leg. And I said, ooh, I wouldn't do that. But she said, Nancy, she says, it has real soft skin. And that totally freaks me out. She said, it will move over and get in the bed beside me, beside my leg. And she says, it presses against my leg. And she says, I kind of pressed against it. And she says, it didn't move. But she says, if I move too fast, she says, it's gone. And I'm thinking, well, you had a lot more interaction with it than I did. But here's where it gets a little bit more bizarre. We both have, we have a younger sister, and she's not had anything happen to her. I can hear her. If it had happened to her, you better get out of here. she would have really come unglued. But my brother, he's 3 years older than I am, and I was at his home one day, and him and his wife have several cats. They love cats. They're always rescuing cats. And excuse me, a cat had jumped up on the couch beside me when I was at his house, and I said, that reminds me of something that happened to me. And he says, well, what happened? And I told him that story about, the thing going across my legs and how it would jump up on the bed. And he looked at me. I said, do y'all let your cats sleep with you? And he says, no. He says, the room I sleep in, he says, I shut the door at night. And he says, they don't get in our beds. He says, we don't let them get in the bed with us. He says, but he says, I will tell you. He says, how you described it. He says, I've had the same thing happen to me. And he says, it scared me the first night it happened. He says, I thought that it was one of the cats. So he says, I got up, threw the covers back and said, get out of here. And he says, there was nothing in the room. There was no cat. And I told him, I said, sis has been having it happen to her, Mary. I call her sis. She's been having it happen to her. And I told him what had happened. And he says, that's just downright freaky. But anyways, did anyone have any questions about that? I tend to go too fast, I know.
No, you're being just fine. Yeah, I'd like to ask, does there seem to be any other like sensitivity with your family? I mean, do you think there's something like that going on? And
Well,
because you told me earlier that you, especially you and your one sister, are very close.
well, the sister that is experiencing this, we are 2 years apart and 1 week. And yes, we are very close. Years ago, if she was sick, I would call her. I would not know that she was sick. She lived in Texas at the time, or if she was going through an ordeal or something. I would have a feeling that something was wrong, and I would call her, and sure enough, something would be wrong. On several occasions, her and I would send each other almost identical birthday cards. Yeah, and we do have a unique connection. She and I do. We had my parents had my older brother's 3 years older. Then Mary's 2 years older than I am. Then there's me, and then they had another child that he was 2 years younger than I am. And when he was born at 7 months. And he lived just a short period of time. I think maybe an hour, if he lived an hour. And then I have a sister 7 years younger. And I had even pondered the thought that perhaps that little brother, somehow his spirit might be searching for us, and it could possibly be him. Or my sister, the older sister, had a baby that didn't fully develop or fully term, excuse me, and it was a tubal pregnancy that she lost a child. And she even wondered if perhaps it was this child. You know, how are we to know whether it is or not, or if it's,
Right.
you know, if we're able to do that type of thing? Like I told you from the beginning, I'm a Christian, and I do believe that God is in control of everything. But I do believe that there are a lot of mysteries in this world that we're not supposed to understand everything. And we never will understand everything. Only God knows the answer to a lot of those things. But I made myself some notes here so I wouldn't forget anything. Um,
Well, can I ask you one other question real quick?
you sure can. Yes.
Okay, earlier you mentioned about having the Ouija board when you younger.
Yes.
Out of the your brothers and sisters that have experienced the same thing that you were,
Yeah.
how many of those were present during some of those sessions?
The three of us.
The three that had the experience.
Yes. I don't think my younger sister ever played with it because, like I said, she was 7 years younger, and it probably either got put away or thrown away or whatever before she actually got to that age. And it might have become more known that that's not something to dabble with. um, I have several other stories. You and I've talked,
Mm-hmm.
Les and I've talked before, and my mother's family has a history of things that happened to my grandmother's family when she was a little. Excuse me, it wasn't her; it was her great grandmother, and a witch placing a curse on this child. And I don't know if you have enough time, we might want to go into that story and what happened
Oh,
in
absolutely.
that situation at another time.
I
That
mean, you can go
mhm,
into it now.
mhm.
I can probably
Well,
relate to that because
mhm,
in my family, on my dad's side, um,
mhm,
which was my great grandmother, um, it was on dad's side, but it was on his mom's side. So it was been on
yeah,
my grandmother's side. My great grandmother, she was a witch, and
mhm,
there was things that happened that my
mhm.
dad experienced as a young child that he believes has stuck with us for the rest of our lives.
Well,
And he always called it the Odell curse.
my,
So so
well, I will tell you this, Granny, as I called her, or
mhm.
Grandma. I kind of interchanged those two terms with her. If I was in a happy mood, she was Granny. And if I was giving her a lot of respect, she was grandma, you know.
Yeah.
But she would tell us stories about that, and her story never wavered. It was the same story each time. And as I got older, I tried to remember exactly how grandma told it. And my memory, I'm 66, and my memory's not as good as it used to be. I tried getting my mom to write down the story that
Mm-hmm.
grandma told us, but to the best of my recollection, um, here's basically how it went, what grandma would tell us. This small girl, I don't know how old she was, but she must have been old enough to have had chores to do. Well, I started doing dishes and making my own bed when I was probably 6 or 7. So, children these days don't have chores and responsibilities, but I did as a
Mm-hmm.
child. And I know that my grandmother and my great grandmother and them did because, you had to help on the farm. Well, this child was evidently trying to help on the farm. And it must have been either during the Civil War or the Revolutionary War. There was a war going on in the United States during the time that this child was alive. So I've done my Ancestry.com trying to even figure out which one it might have been and trying to match up the wars with the child to see if I could figure out which one. Well, anyways, this child would go out to draw water out of the well with the bucket. And I'm sure, Les, that you've probably either done that or you've seen people do it, how
Oh yeah.
you that rope would be on it and you'd
Mm-hmm.
spin that thing around. She would draw the water up out of the well, and they said that rocks would come flying up out of the well and would hit this little girl in the head and the face. And there was no logical explanation, but she would go out to the barn to either collect her dad, to come and eat, or she would walk in the barn for some reason or another. Rocks would come tumbling out of the loft in the barn,
Mm-hmm.
and they would always strike this child. They never hit anyone else. It was this little girl. For whatever reason, this witch had targeted that child, and her mama would be sitting at night brushing her hair and trying to get the blood and the stuff out of her hair and get the probably, excuse me, this is probably gross, the scabs or whatever, from the
Mm-hmm.
sores from the rocks. And she was trying to be gentle with the child. Fire would come out of the fireplace and it would fly at that little girl. Well, a now one of my cousins said that Granny mentioned that there was a rabbit that they would see coming through, and that they thought that this rabbit, that the witch could transform her. She was like a shapeshifter, and
Mm-hmm.
that she could turn herself into a rabbit. Now, I personally don't remember the part about the rabbit, but I do remember Grandma saying that a soldier was going through the area and he saw the child, and he asked what was wrong with the child, what had happened to that little girl, because she was a pretty little girl. And her mother started telling him, what was going on. And he told him, he said, well, there has to be someone in your one of your neighbors or in this community has to be targeting that child.
Mm-hmm.
And they're torturing that child for whatever reason. And he told the family, he says, who do you think it might be? And he had them draw a picture of the lady that they thought it might be. And I don't know if the soldier, if he had a silver bullet or if he melted down something and made a bullet, but he told them that what they needed to do was attach that picture to a chair, the back of a chair, and shoot it with a silver bullet,
Mm-hmm.
which they did. And they said that the old lady that they had drawn the picture of, the resemblance of, that she fell out of a chair and broke her back. And after that happened, the the torture and everything with his child stopped. It's like it stopped immediately. And I believe it because my grandmother was a good person. Now, my grandmother would not lie to us, and she wasn't just making up a yarn to tell us a story. You know what a yarn is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back to West Virginia terms. She wasn't making up a yarn, and I'm not talking about the stuff you crochet with, but she she was dead serious. And I mentioned it to her sister one time. My grandmother, um, her father died before she was born, and she was raised by, she had a stepfather, and her mother raised her. But she never saw her dad before she was born. And when she was born with what they termed a veil over her
Right.
face. And the best I can determine, Les, a veil over your face is when a baby is born
Mm-hmm.
and the water sac doesn't break,
Right.
which is exactly what happened when my second son was born. The water sac didn't break. He came out and the water sac had not broken. The doctor broke the sac. And so my son probably has some special abilities too. Now, some people believe that and some don't. But my grandmother could heal people. She was what people would term a mountain witch that was a
Mm-hmm.
good witch.
Granny witches, that's what they called them.
Yeah,
Still
a
do.
granny witch.
Yep.
And honestly, she knew how to take the burn out if you got burned.
Mm-hmm.
She knew how to stop bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
She knew all of the herbs out there in the woods. Um, I'm going to say something, but it's not inappropriate, but when I became a young lady and I started having the monthly
Mm-hmm.
visitor, Granny knew which tea to make for me so I didn't ache and hurt as bad. And I try to say things in a polite, roundabout way, but not to embarrass anyone. But no, I
You're
loved
not
my
embarrassing me.
grandmother.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I, I later realized as I got older, because I remember my grandma, growing up, we called her
mhm,
Ma. She
uh-huh,
would do things like that. She would say things, and she'd tell us little
mhm.
remedies for stuff. And we thought that was
She,
just normal. We just thought it was normal.
your
And
granny
then,
was a good witch too.
yeah, and then we later realized that's what they called the granny witches. And
Uh-huh.
but it was her mom. I'm pretty
One
sure it was her
was,
mom. It was on
yeah.
her side that
Oh,
my my dad said was not a good witch. She was into the
oh,
dark stuff,
oh my.
and that's where he thinks the what he called the Odell curse come from. So,
Well, Les, when I was younger, um, like I said, I grew up in a Christian church, and for a while, I got kind of fascinated with how could you concoct spells and stuff. I never tried or anything like that,
mm-hmm,
but dabbling into things that you don't know what you're dabbling in is not good.
right,
No, and you can pull things toward you that are not positive. But
right.
anyways, I was going
Well,
to tell you that this was kind of an unusual thing that happened. My parents both saw my mom and dad were walking home when they were dating, and they were walking down, well, in Raleigh County. Most of the people that know this area know where Willie Bet's at in Fireco. Um, in that area, it's rural Raleigh County,
mm-hmm,
and my mom and dad were dating, and they sent her brother with them. They were going for a walk to visit relatives, and you had to take along your brother or your sister with you. And anyways, her little brother was walking with them, and I think he was about 10 years old. And it was starting to get dark, and got up to what they called Dinky Hollow. And my dad said, um, he looked at my mom and he says, "Honey, do you see that lady over there in white?" And my mom says, "Carl, no, I don't." And he says, "Well, I don't know how you can't see her." He says, "She's got a beautiful white dress on." He says, looks like a wedding dress. And he said that, or Mom and Dad both would tell us a story that they would, he saw it first, and it was like a beautiful white dress, but there was no head and no arms. And Mom kept saying, Carl, no, I don't see it. I don't see it. Well, her little brother, Herschel, saw it. And Mom said that Herschel was holding her hand, and she said he started squeezing her hand real hard and started crying. And she says, Herschel, what's wrong? He says, I want to go home. He says, I see that. And Mom said that then she looked and she saw it. And she says, sure enough, she says it looked just like a lady in a white dress. And she said it was beautiful. And she said, my dad started walking over toward it. And he got within just a few feet of it. And it was like it went down under a hill and disappeared. And he was going to walk under the hill, and Mom was yelling at him, Carl, come on, come on. Well, his mother, again, his mother died or she passed, I like that term better, when he was 3 years old. My dad's mom did. And shortly after that, my dad went to Korea, and he served in Korea in the Army. And it was a dark night. He thought that perhaps it was his mom trying to give him a warning. Because my dad, it was a real dark night, and he thought he was stepping in. He'd gotten up to use the bathroom and went back to get in the foxhole, and he thought he was stepping back down in the foxhole, stepped over the side of a 50-foot cliff. And where he landed, the weird thing, Les, where he landed, they said that his body was cradled around him with rocks, but he did not break a single bone, falling 50 foot. And he had a traumatic brain injury after that, and he had grand mal seizures. But I don't know if it was something to try to forewarn him that, of danger, if it was his mother or what, but I only have one picture of his mother, and she's in a white dress. And my dad said that reminds him, he never had that picture. He didn't own that picture when he was younger. He got it later. And when he saw the picture, he said it reminded him of his mom, thinking back on it. And he also said that when my sister got married in the white wedding dress, he says, it reminds me so much of that lady in white. So, anyways, I do think that certain abilities can be passed down from generation to generation.
Right.
And sometimes it's not always a negative curse necessarily, Liz. It might be good abilities that you receive.
Right.
And I shouldn't say I have an ability. I have a strong thing that when I'm around certain people, if they're upset or they're sick, I can sense it.
Yeah, that's empathic abilities.
Yes. I worked with a lady and for years, and she could just walk past me, and I could feel that lady was not feeling that she was having a bad day.
Right.
And she wouldn't say anything, but I could just sense. And I would later go by and visit her desk, and I'd ask her, I'd say, just out of my own curiosity and to confirm what I was feeling, I'd ask her, I'd say, Rusty, how are you doing today? Not feeling well. And I thought, I already knew that. Yeah, I already knew that. But now, when my mom passed, or excuse me, Les, I was 38 years old when my daddy passed away. And he passed away at CAMC in Charleston. And when he passed away, Les, he was 65 years old, and his heart exploded. I mean, it literally exploded. If you saw the picture of it, it was like a balloon, or it just popped and ruptured and blew into fragments. And he lived 3 weeks after that.
Hmm.
And the two cardiologists at CAMC, as a husband and wife team, they came in and visited with us as a family and showed us that picture. And my brother's sitting there crying, and he was telling me, he says, well, they can fix Daddy. He says, I believe in miracles. I believe in God. I said, well, I do too. I said, I sincerely do. I said, I believe in miracles and God. And we got up to walk out, and I looked at the doctors. I was the last one out of the room with them. I turned around and looked at the doctors, and I said, can you explain to me, how is my dad still alive? And both of them looked at me and they said, we have no idea. He shouldn't be.
Hmm.
And I said, my brother wants a miracle. I said, we've already gotten it.
Right.
I said, there's no way that man should still be alive. But he lived almost 3 weeks. He passed on Christmas Eve. And before he passed, they had him on tons of IVs here and there. And they had him strapped down, and they'd released his arms, and he was trying to reach up, and my brother was trying to hold him back down because he thought he'd pull the IVs out. He looked at my brother, and he had been intubated for a long time. Looked at my brother, and he says, boy, you let go of me right now. My brother says, well, Dad, I don't want you to pull those IVs out. He could understand what Dad was saying. He looked at Dad, or Dad looked at him. He says, I'm not going to pull those out. I'm reaching for that angel.
Hmm.
I'm reaching for that angel. Now, if that don't, I mean, I said, praise you, God. I mean, honestly, what more could you ask for? But anyways, Daddy passed, and Mom lived 25 years after Daddy passed. And I was at the hospital with her, and I believe I told you this, Les. She had a little dog,
Mm-hmm.
and she had that dog almost 23 years. And that dog was the smartest little dog I've ever known. And that little dog, I bawled and cried when that dog passed away. I loved her. And I came here to Mom's house. I'm at I'm by my mom's house. And first night I came here after that dog, this month after she'd passed, and I'd come, excuse me, I'd come to visit Mom. And I was sleeping in the bedroom beside my mom. And during the night, I woke up and I hear click, 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 click on the wood floor. And I hear jingle, 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 her little collar. And I'm thinking, that was weird. I get up the next morning, and Mom, we were doing breakfast, and I said, Mom, I said, I heard something last night. She said, did you hear baby? I said, yes, I did. I said, I heard that dog. She says, Nancy, I hear her almost every night. And she said, doesn't scare me, but she says, I can hear her walking around in the house. Now that was weird. That
Right.
was weird. But when mom, right before she passed away, well, it was a couple of days before we'd had to take her back to the hospital. And she was reaching up, and my mom had a problem. Her vocal cords weren't working right. And I asked her, I said, Mom, I said, what are you reaching for? I said, are you reaching for Daddy? No. I said, are you reaching for an angel? No. I said, well, Mommy, who are you reaching for? Dog. Dog. I looked at her, and I mean, I just started bawling, crying.
Right.
I thought she loved that dog. My younger sister was jealous. She thought she loved her more than us. But anyways, after Mom passed, I'm almost done here, Les, I promise you. After Mom passed, and I was staying here by myself, Mom passed here at the house, which doesn't bother me at all because you know what? My mom was really, she was super good to me, and I took care of her. I was one of her main caregivers before she passed. And if my mom was standing here right now, she'd tell you Nancy was good to me because I loved her so much. And anyways, I think it was like a night or two after, it might have been a week or two after she passed. And I had gone to bed. I hadn't been in bed very long. And I, uh, I heard my mom's voice as clear as day saying, Nancy. And I said, yes, Mommy. I said, I'm right here. What do you need? Of course, I didn't hear anything else. She's probably going to say, bring me that dog.
Right.
And I shouldn't laugh, but no, my mom had a wonderful sense of humor, Les. But I got to tell you something weird, other weird that happened to me, and this was just past year, a few months ago. I had hernia surgery at CAMC, January the 29th or 30th, and it went wrong. Um, I, I ended up having a complication from the surgery, and the surgeon, it was nothing I did. The surgeon messed up, and I had to end up going back and having it redone. And I was in the hospital for a week. I couldn't eat for a week, and all I could have was ice chips. And that's not easy. But I lay there and I kept thinking I'm going to die, and because I thought that they wouldn't be able to fix what was wrong, and I kept thinking you need to calm down. But Les, I was laying there, and one night I see a shadow figure coming straight toward my bed, a tall, dark shadow figure. And it comes, there was another lady in the room, and there's a curtain between us, comes right by my bed and right by that curtain to the end of my bed. Scared me. I laid there like this. And I thought, oh, I can't sleep now. And it disappeared when it came to the end of the bed. Did that 3 nights. And last night, I said, you know what? God is here with me. I just said this out loud. God is here with me. You need to go somewhere else. And
Right.
I did not see it again. And I got through the surgery and everything, and I'm here today. But I've had so many close calls with death that God knows He has decided it wasn't my time to go. And I'm not going to go into all of my near-death experiences, but I've had so many of them that, like I said, God had a reason for me to still be here. And I don't know if it's for me to tell other people about Him or what, but
Yeah.
I truly believe in the power of God. And I pray every day for everyone in this world. But did you have did I talk too fast and
No,
not let
no.
anybody ask
Well,
questions?
I got some questions lined up here because
Okay.
we usually go about an hour and 15 minutes or so. The
Okay.
first question, I can't pull it. I'm not gonna go back and pull it up, but I did see it. Danny wanted to know, with the Ouija board, did you close it out after you were done?
No, I'm sure we did not.
Okay.
We did not know how to properly use it. And we also had some cousins that lived right up the road from us. They would come down and visit, and I'm sure that those 3 cousins would also come down, and we would play with it and pretend that we were doing stuff, yes or no answers, and we didn't realize. And those particular cousins have had a lot of tragedy during their lives too.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
Okay. And another question is from Danny also.
hmm
Does either of your sons have kids? If so, do they feel or sense stuff?
um, I have one grandchild, a little girl, and I I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but I think
That's
that
okay.
I don't want to get in trouble with her parents. But I've always thought that she was kind of attuned to those things. Um, she we went out walking one night to see Christmas lights at her parents' house in the neighborhood, and she was probably 18 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice weather in Arkansas. You can go out and watch. You can actually go
Right.
out and go through the whole neighborhood and look at Christmas lights. And there's no mosquitoes in November. And it was just a wonderful night. We had a good time. But we got over to one neighborhood, and she starts looking up. She wasn't looking at the Christmas lights. She was looking up at the sky and pointing and just laughing.
Hmm.
And I kept thinking, what is she seeing? Is she seeing angels? Or she was seeing something, and it was making her laugh. I mean, I kept thinking maybe she's seeing angels dancing.
Maybe.
Oh no. But now she has I will tell you this. I bought her a doll, and when she was little, she had really light. Now my hair's not blonde. Mine's white.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be, believe it or not, I used to have almost coal black hair. And now I have snow white hair, but it's not bleed. It's not out of a bottle. Um, but that baby had pretty blonde hair when she was little. So I bought her a doll that looked a lot like her,
Mm-hmm.
and it had the same outfit and everything. 2 or 3 little outfits, Madame Alexander doll. And from the first time she saw that doll, she didn't like it. And she sent it home with me. She says, Nana, I don't like that doll. That doll's freaky. And it's here at my house. But she evidently did not like that doll for some reason. And that's kind of odd for a child to.
Right.
I don't know what it is about that doll, but she does not like that doll. And even today, she'll say, Nanny, you need to get that doll out of your house. I don't like that doll.
I don't like dolls at all, so I don't blame her. Well, with that being said about your granddaughter,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
this is a good question here from Belinda. Let me pull
Okay.
it up here. It says, Nancy, does this just follow the females in your family being sensitive, or the males too?
No, I think it's females and male because, like I said, my son heard those. He witnessed that orb and he saw the orb and heard the voice. And if my brother is experiencing this, it evidently is not just the females. Um, Now, my sister that's experiencing this,
Mm-hmm.
she has beautiful blue eyes. And there is something, I don't know if you've read this, Les, or not, but there's something about blue eyes in families.
Mm-hmm.
And blue eyes are a recessive gene.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have brown eyes. I mean, dark brown eyes. Both my parents had green. Um, Mary has blue eyes just like our grandma. That her, the one that had the situation with the witch, her great great grandmother. My firstborn son, you will not believe this. My firstborn son, like I told you, I had almost black hair. Firstborn son was born blonde hair and blue eyes.
Hmm.
I mean, pretty blue eyes. And the doctor kept saying, his eyes are going to change.
Yeah.
They're going to change. I said, oh, I don't know. I said, I think he's going to have blue eyes. And he sure enough does. And his daughter has blue eyes. Yeah,
Very cool.
it is cool.
Yeah, my dad had blue eyes. I don't remember what my grandmother had, but Dad did. My middle brother does, and my mom had hazel. I got hazel. and I
Hmm.
believe my youngest brother has hazel eyes. So,
Does anyone else in your family have they witnessed things?
oh yeah,
You know.
my dad.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's things I've witnessed. I think come from dad. Both my oldest son and my youngest son have experienced things. Um,
Have they?
yeah,
Um, I think the biggest thing, like my sister told me, you might tell your sons that um, don't let the fear overcome you. Know that know that God is with you. And I'm not meaning to push religion so
no,
much or anything, but the light will always overcome the darkness.
right,
Yep, yep. The light over always rules the darkness.
absolutely. Well, it is been an hour and 15 minutes. Um, I can sit
I
here and listen to you
enjoyed
tell
this.
stories all night. I love them. I
Well,
love
I
listening.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love
Uh,
listening to
um,
stories, and there's seeing the comments that saying they're enjoying the stories. But I
Thank you.
really grateful that you come on.
Thank you
I
very
will
much.
have you back again because you were
Okay.
talking about some other stuff when we was talking earlier that I'd like
Hmm.
to dig into a little bit. Um,
Okay.
so maybe I don't know,
Hmm.
later in the year because
Yeah.
I got a few couple months
Yeah.
here already booked up. We'll talk, see if we can get you back on. I like it as a few people
That'll
as
be fine.
returning
Maybe
guests.
I maybe I can get my sister to come,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I would love if she would, because I think she would relax. I was actually very nervous about talking to you tonight, but like I told you prior to the show, if you just tell the truth and you're honest about what's happened to you, there's nothing really to be nervous about. No.
Yep, I
No.
agree. I agree
Mhm.
100%. And you see there, Angie's thank you, Nancy.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. It
Tony,
was my
great show.
pleasure. My pleasure.
And
Um,
here's one from Belinda. Nancy, you
oh,
have some great stories I can relate to.
oh, thank
So,
you, Belinda. I enjoy what your work that you're doing, Les. You have adorable. Your little boy is like a spitting image of you. He's little Les, and
yeah,
mini me,
I
and
have a lot of people tell me that. Yes,
yeah, they are adorable. Well, thank you again, and I look forward to perhaps seeing you someday and meeting you in person. Um,
absolutely.
but thank you,
So,
everyone.
are you in the Charleston area? Is that where you're at?
No, I live in Raleigh County.
Oh,
I
okay.
live down. Yeah, I live outside of Beckley. Yeah, outside. I gave you my address.
Okay.
I think I included it.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. When you said
Yeah.
something about the hospital in Charleston, I just kind of like jumped to.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I have CAMC. Um, a lot of memories of that place. I mean, hospitals are a breeding ground for paranormal activity.
Oh yeah, I've talked to. Trust me, I've talked to a few nurses. Um,
Hmm.
I've when I've been in the hospital, visiting like relatives or something, I've been there.
Hmm.
I definitely, you know, asked around, hey, have you ever experienced something weird?
Yeah,
And I've heard some stories. I mean, it's pretty interesting what you do here. The thing you were talking about, um, seeing the angels, that's one
yeah,
you hear a lot. You hear a lot about it in whether it's nursing homes or hospitals. But yeah, it's
yeah.
very common.
I think it's beautiful. Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I hope someday that I see an angel. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't mean that in a morbid way.
No, not at all.
I didn't mean that in a morbid way. But, anyways, listen. Oh, whoop to Beckley, huh?
Yeah,
Danny.
Danny lives down in Beckley. I never even thought when you told
Oh,
me Raleigh County that you were down.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll be down that way this
Uh-huh.
weekend. We're going
Oh,
down.
really?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, um, if um, if you're ever out and about, um, I've been in quarantine for 10 days now,
right,
and I should be safe to be around people. I was going to wait until this weekend.
right.
I have literally been in my house for 10 days,
Wow,
and I took it very serious because I did not want to get anybody else sick.
right.
And But yeah, if you're ever out and about in this area, maybe we can all meet up at a restaurant and
Absolutely.
have
Yeah.
a lunch and discuss things. That would be
Yeah.
cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We'll talk about
yeah,
Bigfoot in that area.
yeah. That would be. Hey, right up the road from me is one of the places that they supposedly had a sighting one time.
Where's that at?
Down Whitby Road.
Danny, you know where that's at? I mean, Danny's from down around that area.
Does he? Or is he?
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
from.
They say out on Whitby Road they had a sighting one time. But now, oh, I'll keep that for future stories. Some of the things that my mom used to tell me as a little girl, things that they would hear when she was a kid. Yeah,
Yeah. Danny knows where it's at. He knows. He said yes.
yeah.
Well, do you know the Twin Falls area down in there?
Yes, I do.
There's all kind of sightings from around that area.
Now that's is that in Twin Falls? Isn't that over near Mullins?
Yeah, somewhere over there. Yes.
Uh-huh. Well, over at Glen Daniel,
Yeah.
or Lake Stevens, there is a channel that I listen to a lot
Hmm.
called Buckeye Bigfoot.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
Nance. I
I've met
met
her. Yeah.
her.
I've met her a couple times.
Yeah, I met Nance at the Gatlinburg Bigfoot Festival
Hmm.
last year, and I bought me a ticket to go this year, and funds got tight, and I said, you know what? I can't really afford that $150 hotel bill
Right.
for one night, so I didn't make it this year. But I had a blast getting to meet Nance, and she's a wonderful person. But she
Hmm.
told a story one time. Excuse me, I'm not meaning to drag on more.
No.
She told a story about a deputy sheriff that lived over near Lake Stevens,
Hmm.
and him and his wife had decorated a Christmas tree out in their backyard for Christmas. And Bigfoot came through and did not like the
Hmm.
ornament or the lights on the tree and took them off.
Right. I've
Yeah.
heard that one. Yep.
And Lake Stevens is not that far from here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Danny says Lake Stevens is a hot spot. So.
I believe it. I believe it. Oh, honestly, I even believe around here. I grew up, tell Danny I'm an odd girl. I actually grew up in Odd, ODD.
Hmm.
And um, if you visit over there now, it's not like it was when I
Right.
was a kid. It was a nice place when I was a kid. But I would not doubt if Bigfoot didn't stand off in the woods and watch us from afar all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that. But anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag on.
It's okay. Yep.
I can
Well,
talk. I can talk all night.
I can listen. Trust me, I can listen.
Oh,
Um. Well, like I said, that's where we'll finish it up here.
okay.
And Belinda, again,
Cool.
what a great show. Anyone, there's Aaron saying here, anyone heard old stories of something that appears to be the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but really tall, human size and fat? No, I haven't, but I want to hear more about
No,
that, Aaron.
no,
All
no,
right,
me
Nancy,
neither.
it's been a great time. I'll put you in the background here real
Okay.
quick, and I'll
Thank
be
you.
right back with you here in a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye. Well, folks, there you go. Nancy Dobbins. I just loved it. I mean, I love the story. She's a very, very polite lady. Very great. I mean, you just can't love not hearing her talk. Or she just the stories are great. Her personality is great. I loved it. I could go on forever listening to her. Yeah, Aaron, I thought she's awesome as well. I enjoy a lot of the stories, and I connect. I can relate with a lot of things she was talking about. I've had some experiences with my family with some of the stuff like she's talking about. So yeah, I can relate with them or with her and with those stories. But yeah, Aaron, I want to hear about that. That is something I've never heard before. What to say? Trying to validate mom's 4-H stories with the people she went with. Okay, well, Aaron, what area was it in? You know what area? Yeah, Danny, I feel so too. A very great, special person. Yep, you can tell it. Good night, Belinda. Have a good night, Wes. Wood County. All right. Aaron, send me a message. I don't know if we're friends on Facebook or not, but hit me up, send me a Facebook request, or just send me a email, wvcase304@yahoo.com. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about some of the stuff you're talking about. Yeah, definitely want to hear more about that. Tammy, thank you. Again, yeah, I like I said, I enjoyed the show very, very much, just as well as everybody else did. So with that being said, everybody, get out there, look around, explore, enjoy what you're doing, no matter what you're into. Look for the weird stuff. Enjoy it. Don't be ashamed of it. We're all weird in some way or the other. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.